I'd like to go a little bit further and talk about not just the tactics of native advertising, but figuring out how brands can create content that people will actually like and share on their behalf. EQ over IQ. So are there any BuzzFeed readers in the? Oh, that's so good to see. I was skeptical. I didn't know. It's glad to see that Australia has so many time wasters and goof-offs. We're building our business on your back. So for those of you that are productive workers, you should check out BuzzFeed.com. We create, it's a news and entertainment site, and we create content that people want to share. One thing about us, you should probably know we're growing really fast. When I joined 2.5 years ago, we reached 6 million unique visitors around the world, and this month we're probably going to reach 150 million. So we're growing very quickly. And the last thing I'm going to say on BuzzFeed before I get into the examples is we had sort of a watershed moment earlier this year. That's Barack Obama. He's our president. I'm not sure how much you guys follow politics, but anyways. He was talking about BuzzFeed, said the media landscape is changing. I remember when BuzzFeed was just something I did in college around 2 a.m. So our president's a big stoner and pothead. We're really excited about that. So the agenda is talk a little bit about native, but more about social. And we think that thanks to Twitter and Facebook, we think social changes everything for the better. And then I'm going to give examples of brands as storytellers. And then I really want to leave time for discussion and examples. BuzzFeed is all for marriage equality, and we have a very thriving LGBT site, but we're not experts in the marketing. So while we would endorse and love to promote the union of Gay Time Ice Cream and Peter's Drumstick, I don't feel like we're very qualified. That is my one Australia joke, you guys. I mean, really. They're going to be running for the exit asking for their money back. Did anybody pay to get in here? All right, you get what you pay for. All right, so our definition of native advertising is paid ads that are so cohesive with the content and they're assimilated into the design and consistent with the platform behavior that the viewer simply feels that they belong. And so in the United States, like last year, people were saying, oh, BuzzFeed's the leader in native advertising. We just stole this from Google and Facebook and Twitter, like real companies. And so it's nice to be considered sort of the leaders in native advertising. To me, it's advertising that's not interruptive, that's in the flow. It's advertising that sucks less, I think is the definition of native advertising. And we're really borrowing from Twitter and Facebook and Google in this regard. So if native is good, we think social is better. And so our general POV is this, is that the internet is fucking awesome. I mean, you can find things and engage with them, and you can share them with your friends. And so why doesn't advertising do the same thing? Right? Like, wouldn't it be cool if you could, create things, brands can create things that people like and share on your behalf, and you can do word-of-mouth marketing at scale? I think that's the promise of social advertising, and that's what we're focused on. So, but that's a lot of power for brands, at least in the United States. So you tell people, it's like, oh, you can create advertising that people will share. And then like you'll get a client like Dell Computer and go, that's so awesome. I have this 30-page white paper on enterprise computing that I need to go viral right now. And you're like, I don't think so, man. But we tell our advertisers to take the Facebook test, right? So like, would you want to see this content in your news feed? Would you click on it? Would you share it with your friend? And if the answer is no, then you got no chance. But if the answer is yes, then you can do social advertising. So I'm going to spend the next few slides talking about the motivations of why people share things. BuzzFeed started 7 years ago, and it really started as a R&D lab to figure out how and why people share content. And these are some of the things that we learned. So content's all about identity. So are there, does anybody know what this is? Are you left-handed? Okay, all right. So if you're left-handed, you write, and it like, so the thing that we found is that for most media, you create things that you try to appeal to the biggest audience. And for social content, you want to create it to a niche audience that totally believes in it so much that they'll share it. And so we do articles on 12 reasons why it sucks to be left-handed. Or we did this article a couple months ago, said 37 reasons why it sucks to be tall. And I obviously did not click on that content. However, there's this guy that works for me in Chicago, and he's like 6'6", he's like 2 meters tall. And he's calling me up. He's like, oh my God, this content's so amazing. All my ginormous friends are sharing it with me. And so it's just a funny thing how people share content. And that's one of the reasons why we're starting BuzzFeed Australia. We've just organically, we probably got 2 million people visiting our site. But we feel like, Simon feels like if you create content that's like 12 reasons why you know you're from the western suburbs, or 10 reasons why it's terrible to be a Rabbitohs fan, or if you make stuff about a specific identity and content, we think it'll be shared more. The other thing is have a heart. So we can report ad nauseum about flooding in Bangladesh, and people feel bad about it. But if you show a guy saving kittens, people are more likely to identify it and share it because it touches you emotionally and it shows that you're a good person and you care. So that's a principle. The other thing is capture the moment. This example is going to make no sense, but about a year ago, there was this earthquake in New York. And I'm from California. We have earthquakes all the time. It's not a big deal. And but in New York, it was like, oh, this 4.0 earthquake. It was nothing. But if you looked on Facebook, you have all these New Yorkers going, earthquake, and they're running around, they're running out of buildings like this. And so we published this story about an hour after the earthquake. It was like 27 horrific images from the New York earthquake, right? Like, this cup fell over, or this picture is slightly askew. And so people in California were heckling people from New York and vice versa. And so we got 1 million views of this content in less than 24 hours because we captured the moment. It was like what Marie said from Twitter. It's like this idea of moment and relevance. What did you say, Marie? It was moment plus content equals relevance. I was listening. Okay, so humor is social. People share humor. That's the only other joke I have in this presentation, you guys. You guys are brutal. Okay, people share stuff that's funny. We all want to look clever, right? But human rights are very important. So in the United States, we have this whole marriage equality push. And instead of saying, I'm for marriage equality, it's hard for people to do that. But if you give them content gifts about these awesome couples that have been together for years and now they have the right to get married, whether you're gay or not and you support that, you're going to share that. And it's because it says something about yourself and you're building your own brand. The one thing you need to know is that people do not share perverted content, right? So do you remember like a couple years ago? I see all these guys smiling. They know exactly what I'm talking about. Remember when Scarlett Johansson's phone was hacked and we had nude pictures of Scarlett Johansson? This guy's totally smiling. He's like, I know nothing about it, right? It was like the most Googled term of the week. Like everybody's Googling it. But nobody was sharing it because nobody wants to come off like a big perv. So I guess our point is that if all content is social now, then why can't ads be too? And what we found is that social advertising is more like TV advertising, right? It's less like display advertising because you've got a big palette and you can tell a story and you can involve people emotionally and you can have a heart. And so think of this as a gift to tell a brand story that's relevant and not to spam people with banner ads. And so this is the other thing I have on native advertising. So when you go to the BuzzFeed site today, you'll see a bunch of interesting content. And the ads on our site, they're not banner ads, but we work with brands to figure out what their brand stands for, and then we create content that people will like and share. So it's clearly called out as ads. We're not deceiving anybody. It's not deceptive. But we feel like the ad content is so good that people will click and share it, and we measure all that sharing. So now I got a bunch of examples that we've run. Monday was the Grammys. So we had Pepsi and BuzzFeed in the office, and we knew that this was a moment of relevance, right? And we needed to create content in real time, so we did this. This is sort of the next frontier of marketing. I probably should have showed you this at the end, because I think it's really neat. But because it was relevant, because it aligned with the zeitgeist, and because we were creating this in real time, the share rates were astronomical. Do you guys have Belvita here? Like, you can't write social content that says Belvita is delicious. Like nobody cares, right? But Belvita's brand promise is if you wake up with Belvita in the morning, you're going to have a great day. So we created content about 12 ways to have a great day. And this is something that people like and they share. Lay's potato chips, 10 insanely delicious chip flavors from around the world. This is a program they're doing with Facebook and Twitter, and they're asking consumers to come up with the next great flavor. And so people are submitting things like, I guess you guys could have done better than Caesar salad. I mean, really. But New Zealand roast chicken, smoky bacon, Ulta. So Ulta is a women's brand. I've never heard of Ulta before, but they wanted to start this conversation, and ideally this was right around Valentine's Day, and they wanted men to buy products for women, and if they didn't know what it was, then how are they going to buy it? And so we did these posts on the Boyfriend's Guide to Beauty Products. And so the idea is something that is interesting that a girlfriend might share with a boyfriend, or the boyfriend say, hey, you got one of these in the bathroom, I just figured out what it was, and shares it with it, and it starts a conversation among these groups. This is something for Pampers. We use a lot of animated GIFs and Vines. 11 babies who played so much they tuckered out. And the interesting thing about this is that what we found is that content finds its audience. So I've got kids, I got 3 kids, I'm done changing diapers, I can care less, right? But if you're like a new mom or a new dad and you see these adorable babies, you were compelled to click on them and share it with all your breeder friends that also have babies, right? So, this is the exciting thing. We talk about instead of going mass, you want to focus on sort of this key identity thing. And this is a perfect one with babies. And we work with all sorts of brands. Like people think, oh, I got to have this glamorous, sexy brand to do interesting stuff. You could be Intel, right? Intel is trying to push the idea of hybrid computers. Everybody know what hybrid, they're doing the same thing down here? Hybrid computers like a tablet and it's a laptop. And so people even don't know what it is. So we're taking the word hybrid and say, 10 delicious hybrid foods you need to try right now. And what their research said is like, oh, we want to reach young people that are kind of foodies and might be in the market for a computer. And so rather than like show 10 sexy images of a computer, we did something that sort of aligns with what they think their consumers will want. You guys have Virgin Mobile here, right? They're our biggest partner. They do hilarious stuff. And so Virgin has been with us for 3 years, and they're constantly, every week, they're coming out with new content. And their brand message is very simple. It's like, young people do not talk on phones. They want cheap plan with unlimited texting. And what they found is that you don't need, someone was saying before, you don't need like this glamorous HD, beautiful commercial. Like lo-fi content that is funny that people can share works really well, and that's what they do. Here's another one. Allstate's an insurance company in the States. It's like one of the most boring brands ever. But they really believe in marriage equality. And for such a conservative company, they had this program where they wanted to insure newly married gay couples. And so they got the hashtag out holding hands. And we did a post on 10 people who aren't afraid to be who they are. Really beautiful. It's great. I cannot believe Allstate's doing such great work. And people share this stuff because it builds your personal brand. You say you support this issue. So we're attracting a young audience. I mean, look, in the States at least, I mean, old people watch the news, right? And that's just the way it is. And then this isn't new. Like I saw the picture of Ogilvy and that other old guy that was talking about people read things, sometimes it's an ad. And there's been great advertising for a very long time. And I feel like we've gotten away from it because your brands are saying, oh, I need an ROI, or I'm in love with TV commercials or whatever. But I think it's a great opportunity for brands to tell their story and engage consumers. The big difference is that you can measure all of this. So every advertiser we work with gets a dashboard, and this is a program that ran, I guess, for about a month. And what it's saying is we got 328,000 views to their content. And the blue traffic, or most of the engagements, came because people were on BuzzFeed, and they saw it on the homepage, and they read the story. But all that red traffic, 86,000 engagements, came because those people saw it, shared it with their friends, and these friends came from Facebook and Twitter. So it's media with benefits, right? Like you can, create great work, make it engaging, and people will share it for you, and you get to measure all this stuff. So the last thing I'm going to talk about before I hopefully get some questions is this idea of always-on marketing. And last year at the Super Bowl, America's pathetic. We had the Super Bowl and like the lights went out. It was like ridiculous, like totally embarrassing. But Oreo was ready. Was this like a big story here? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? So they were ready and they were able to tweet about it. It's a big Twitter case study. Everybody loves it, right? And so now, like Pepsi had a newsroom at BuzzFeed and they were creating stuff in real time. But even if your brands aren't there, like you could do like planned spontaneity. So this is what Volkswagen did, right? San Francisco is playing Baltimore in the Super Bowl. You have 2 weeks' notice. One team's going to win, one team's going to lose. So we created 2 pieces of content. And when San Francisco lost, like a minute later, we posted this. It says, "Oh, San Francisco fans, sucks for you. Your team lost. But you should be happy because there's 10 great reasons why it's great to live in San Francisco. You've got a bridge and you walk hills and you have awesome calves, right?" And so even though it wasn't really real time because we wrote this 2 weeks in advance, we call it planned spontaneity. It works for our advertisers. And if you guys look at your calendar, you know, there's back to school and there's summer and there's Valentine's Day and there's holidays. And like, you can look at your marketing calendar and create content that is going to find that moment that Marie was talking about. And you can create the content to be relevant. We don't have any Australian advertisers. We'd love to work with somebody. So think, oh, a beer brand would do well, or a consumer packaged good brand would do well. What we found is it really doesn't matter. If it's like a good brand and you have a good story to tell, you got a chance. The thing that we found is that the more you spend, the more content you create, the better chance you have of getting it shared. And then also, the more stuff you create, the more sharing you get, and the lower the cost per engagement. So it really doesn't particularly matter what the category is. If you have a story to tell and you're committed to always on rather than like a 3-week flight and then off for 8 weeks, we think this is the best way to go. Do we have any questions? Okay. The question is when you're creating 10 greatest cities in the world or 10 shittiest cities in the world, are people attracted to the negative? And I would say that Australians are definitely attracted to the negative. It's very sad. It's a character flaw on you guys. I'm sorry. I think, at least what we found in the States, and we're in the UK. The UK is probably a little bit snarkier site than the US site, and you guys may be off the rails snarky. But you can't be mean-spirited because people don't share mean-spirited. They share things like, oh, this is kind of goofy and it's kind of a joke, but it's kind of funny. It's funny you mentioned the cities thing. Last week we published a story that take a quiz, what city should you actually live in? Did anybody do that? Yeah. You know how many people engaged with that quiz last week? 18 million. It's like crazy. I'm so stunned and awed by this stuff. But it's getting to your point. Was it positive or negative? If you end up with the city at the end, either you're pissed and you go, oh, I got Portland. I'm not like from Portland. Or you're like, oh, I got Paris. Well, I'm just so fancy, right? And so I think it gives people a reason to share. I think that's why that post did so well. Key takeaways is native's good, but we think social's better. If you're a brand, think about what credible stories you can tell. Like do something like stop tweeting boring shit, right? Like do something that's good that people will like. And think of it as like content gifts, right? Every brand has people that absolutely love that brand. I think of Tim Tams. Like people are just nuts for Tim Tams. If you gave these Tim Tam freaks content, they would share it with everybody else's like, about Tim Tams. And then you should have some fun.